Apple's MacBook Neo, the most repairable Mac in a decade, and why it matters. Apple has long been known for sleek design, premium hardware, and tightly integrated ecosystems. But the company has also faced persistent criticism from consumer advocates and regulators for the difficulty of repairing its devices. For years, MacBooks were notorious among repair technicians. Glued batteries, soldered components, and complex internal designs made even simple repairs expensive or impossible. Now, something unusual has happened. Apple's new MacBook Neo, launched in March 2026, is suddenly being called the most repairable MacBook in more than a decade. That may sound like a small engineering tweak, but it actually signals something much bigger about the future of consumer electronics, regulation, sustainability, and Apple's own strategy. The MacBook Neo isn't just another laptop. It represents a subtle but meaningful shift in the tech industry's design philosophy. Let's unpack why. Key takeaways. Apple's new MacBook Neo starts at $599, $499 for students, making it the company's cheapest laptop ever. Repair experts gave the device a 6/10 repairability score, the highest for an Apple laptop in over a decade. The laptop uses screws instead of glue, allowing easier replacement of batteries, keyboards, and ports. The Neo runs on the A18 Pro chip, originally designed for iPhones. However, RAM is soldered and non-upgradable, limiting future AI performance. The device is clearly aimed at the education market dominated by Chromebooks. Apple's repairability problem. To understand why the MacBook Neo matters, we need to go back a decade. Throughout the 2010s and early 2020s, Apple's hardware became increasingly difficult to repair. Common complaints included batteries glued into aluminum frames, keyboards integrated into entire top cases, memory soldered onto motherboards, specialized screws, and proprietary parts. Repair shops often described opening a MacBook as surgery. From Apple's perspective, these design choices had advantages. Thinner laptops, better structural rigidity, higher efficiency, tighter integration with Apple Silicon. But critics argued they also created a closed ecosystem where users were forced to rely on Apple's expensive repair services. That debate fueled the global right-to-repair movement. Governments in the US, Europe, and several other regions began pushing legislation requiring electronics manufacturers to make repairs easier and spare parts accessible. The MacBook Neo appears to be Apple's response to that pressure. Inside the MacBook Neo, a different design philosophy. When repair specialists tore down the new MacBook Neo, they were surprised. Instead of adhesives and sealed components, they found a modular layout. Key changes include battery secured with screws instead of glue, keyboard repairable without replacing the entire top case, modular USB-C ports, and headphone jack, camera and fingerprint sensor designed for easier replacement. This kind of layout used to be standard across laptops a decade ago, but gradually disappeared as manufacturers prioritized thinness and integration. The Neo brings some of that practicality back. Still, it isn't perfect. The repairability score sits at 6 out of 10, which is far below some competitors like Lenovo laptops that reach 9 or even 10. The main limitation? Soldered RAM. The RAM limitation, a strategic trade-off. One of the most controversial design decisions in the MacBook Neo is its 8 GB of unified memory that cannot be upgraded. For casual users, that may not be an immediate problem. But for investors and technologists watching the AI revolution, it raises questions. Modern software, especially on-device AI processing, is becoming extremely memory-intensive. Apple itself is pushing heavily into Apple Intelligence, its privacy-focused AI ecosystem that runs many tasks locally on devices. But limited memory could constrain future performance. In practical terms, heavy multitasking becomes harder. AI workloads may struggle. Longevity of the device could shorten. Repairable hardware is good for sustainability, but non-upgradable memory undermines that advantage. It's a classic Apple compromise: simplicity and efficiency versus long-term flexibility. The A18 Pro chip, an iPhone brain in a laptop. Another unusual aspect of the MacBook Neo is the processor. Instead of using Apple's powerful M-series Mac chips, the Neo runs on the A18 Pro chip, originally developed for the iPhone 16 Pro. That makes it the first Mac laptop powered by a phone chip. This design decision reveals Apple's broader strategy. The company now builds chips across a unified architecture, meaning the same core technology can power iPhones, iPads, Macs, AI devices, future wearables. The A18 Pro is highly efficient and delivers strong single-core performance, which makes everyday tasks like browsing, writing, and streaming feel extremely fast. However, it lags behind larger laptop processors in multi-core workloads. This confirms what the MacBook Neo is meant to be. It's not a power user machine. It's a mass-market laptop. Apple targets the Chromebook market. The MacBook Neo's most important strategic role is simple: compete with Chromebooks. Chromebooks dominate education markets globally, especially in the United States. School districts love them because they are cheap, easy to repair, simple to manage. By pricing the MacBook Neo at $599, or $499 for students, Apple is trying to break into that ecosystem. Repairability becomes crucial in this environment. Schools often maintain thousands of devices, and replacing entire laptops when a keyboard fails is financially unsustainable. The Neo's modular design makes it easier for technicians or even students to repair machines. This mirrors Chromebook repair programs already used in school districts like Oakland, California. For Apple, the education sector represents a long-term customer pipeline. Students who grow up using Macs are far more likely to buy iPhones, iPads, Apple services, future Mac devices. The Neo could therefore function as a gateway product. Sustainability and regulation pressures. Another reason behind the Neo's design shift is environmental regulation. Governments worldwide are targeting electronic waste, which is one of the fastest-growing waste streams globally. Repairable devices last longer and produce less waste. Apple has already committed to ambitious sustainability goals: carbon neutrality, recycled materials in hardware, longer device lifespans. The MacBook Neo reportedly contains about 60% recycled materials, aligning with those goals. But making devices repairable also reduces criticism from regulators and environmental activists. In other words, repairability is not just engineering, it's politics and branding. Competitive landscape. The budget laptop market is extremely competitive. Major competitors include HP, Lenovo, Acer, Asus, Microsoft Surface. Many Windows laptops in the $500 to $800 range already offer modular components and easy repairs. Apple historically ignored this segment. Instead, it focused on premium devices with high margins. But the Neo changes that equation. If Apple successfully scales a $599 Mac, it could dramatically expand the Mac ecosystem. Even small market share gains would represent millions of additional units per year. Investment and industry implications. For investors, the MacBook Neo highlights several important trends. First, Apple is broadening its price ladder. Historically, the company avoided ultra-budget hardware, but competition from Chromebooks and ARM-powered Windows PCs is forcing Apple to respond. Second, the device reflects regulatory pressure on hardware design. Right-to-repair laws are spreading globally, and Apple appears to be adjusting its engineering accordingly. Third, the Neo shows Apple experimenting with cross-device silicon strategy. Using iPhone chips in laptops could reduce costs and improve manufacturing efficiency. Finally, the Neo may signal a long-term shift toward modular hardware, at least in lower-cost devices. If repairability becomes a selling point for consumers, competitors may follow. Conclusion: a small laptop with big implications. At first glance, the MacBook Neo looks like a simple budget laptop, but its design reveals several deeper shifts happening across the technology industry. Apple is responding to regulatory pressure, environmental concerns, education market opportunities, competition from ARM-based PCs. By making the Neo easier to repair, Apple is acknowledging something the industry long resisted. Hardware longevity is becoming a competitive advantage. The device may not be the most powerful Mac ever built. It may not even be Apple's most profitable laptop. But strategically, it could become one of the most important. Because if Apple succeeds in bringing millions of new users into the Mac ecosystem through an affordable, repairable device, the long-term impact could ripple across the entire technology market. And that makes the MacBook Neo far more significant than its modest price tag suggests.